The question I'm always trying to answer in one way or another is like, why do we value what we value? Why is this cultural history considered more important than another?
Julia Halperin has built a celebrated career as an arts and culture journalist by asking the tough questions about power, representation, and institutional change. But while she spent years holding arts and cultural institutions accountable, she admits she wasn't always doing the same for herself.
Who do I want to please more? And that would be what would drive me. And that has definitely evolved in a way that has been critical.
On today's episode, Julia shares how perfectionism and a fear of letting people down propelled her career until it pushed her to burnout, and how finally learning how to prioritize herself gave her the space to say yes to the work that matters most.
It takes a lot of effort to unlearn things. If you start small, the more you do it, the more you realize the world doesn't fall apart.
Julia, welcome to Fail Up.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited.
I'm excited to be here.
We start all of the conversations with a little meet cute. How do we meet? What's your recollection?
We met when you joined Artnet as COO, and I think it was still pandemic era, right? Like, so I don't think we met in person for a while.
It would have been post pandemic, but yeah, there was still some pandemic.
Yeah, so we were still remote. True. So I feel like you were sort of this like Wizard of Oz figure for a while, where I just like saw you on Zoom, and like you were sort of like positioned as the one who would come and save us all.
That's so funny that I kind of forgot that it was all kind of virtual.
Yeah, well, beginning. And it was, I think. Yeah. I don't know. What was your recollection?
Yeah, no, it's coming back to me that I didn't meet everyone at first. But you were the executive editor of Artnet at that time, right? Do you want to just talk to everyone a little bit what that meant? Yeah,
so that we had a team of about 15 journalists who were based primarily in New York, but also in London and Berlin. And I was sort of running the team, basically, that was producing this sort of round-the-clock art news publication.
Very cool. I want to get to know you a little bit better. I mean, we've worked together, obviously, and for the sake of the audience, but also me. I feel like we didn't get to know each other super personally during that time, so I'm very curious, although I do know that you have a fascination with beagles.
That's true.
I feel like we bonded over our mutual love of beagles.
Yes.
How's your beagle doing?
Oh, she's good. She's good. She's just presiding over the Brooklyn neighborhood.
I love it.
She's a celebrity.
Do you have more than one?
No.
Just the one beagle?
I aspire to have more than one, but I think...
Not while you're in New York.
No.
Maybe.
No.
But talk to us a little bit, like where did you grow up?
I grew up outside Washington, D.C., in Bethesda, Maryland. And yeah, I feel like my interest in art came from growing up and going to museums all the time in
when you were
D.C.
a kid?
Yeah, because D.C. museums are free. And that's like a major difference, and I think shapes the way that I like inhabited them, because you could go in for 20 minutes and it wasn't like you had to pay, as a family, like more than $100, and you had to really get your money's worth. Like you could go in for 10 minutes and then leave.
Do you have any early memories of kind of a first museum experience? Do you remember the first one you went to?
I think it was probably the National Gallery.
Yeah.
My mom was a docent there, so there was like a little bit of like hometown advantage and pride.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just sort of like, what is this place? Like it just sort of felt like a magical place where you could like travel back in time or travel forward in time, and it really felt like a place to sort of unlock your imagination in a way that I hadn't experienced before.
And so your parents are both in the arts?
No, my dad was a lawyer, and my mom was her father was an art dealer, but he mostly sold fake art.
Did he?
Yeah.
Oh my God, controversial.
I know.
Talk to us about that.
I mean, he was kind of like a scammer, shyster, lived in Carmel, Colorado, and my mom, when he got ill, went and took over his art gallery. So that's how she got into the art world.
Wow.
And ran it for a while, and then like after he died, I think went to go sell a work or two that he had left her, and they were like, these aren't real.
Oh, so you didn't realize until
no, I mean, I wasn't born yet, but no.
They didn't realize.
No.
Until,
I mean, I think she always knew he was kind of sketchy, but yeah, so that's the origin of my, it's all built on a lie.
But that is so fascinating to me, because that makes total sense as like your all your work is
Yeah.
around kind of getting to the truth of
Totally.
this industry. So
Yeah.
that is such a kind of seminal
Yeah.
experience.
And then she was always sort of interested in continuing that. She was a docent and then ultimately started her own art gallery like out of our house. So
Wow.
I would be like doing homework at the kitchen table and she would be like doing a hard sell in another room to like some,
That's amazing.
other lawyer at my dad's firm or like somebody in the neighborhood. So it was always around and like always presented as something sort of valuable and important. And so that was definitely formative.
And you have a sister, right?
I do. Yeah. Doesn't like art at all.
Really?
Could not
what
care
was she?
less.
What universe is she
She
in?
is works at preschool
Oh, wow.
and has a social work degree. Yeah. And like also I definitely started to love like lean into the love of art because she hated it so much and like my mom loved that like somebody was into it.
Yeah.
So it was definitely like
That was a way to get the affection and love from your parents.
100%. It was like
wild.
it absolutely sort of like
Yeah.
was a way for me to shine, and I leaned into it in that way. So I have very vivid memories of going to museums and her being like, ugh, and me being like, I love it. This is an opening.
So you were the favorite child.
I tried really hard.
And how did all this translate? Obviously, this is a huge part of your life. Did you always know that you wanted to do that as a career, as a profession?
I did. I thought I wanted to be a curator. I was like the second, like the weird second grader when they were like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "A curator at the Louvre." It's like, oh yeah, your parents definitely had no like didn't put the finger on the scale at all. You definitely just figured that out on your own. And I that was always the plan, and I loved writing as well. But I kind of always I had this fantasy about working in museums. And then I got to college and I applied for internships at like the Whitney and MoMA, and I didn't get any of them. And so I was like, oh no. What am I going to do? This plan, it's not working out. And so, yeah, I Googled best art blog.
Wow.
And I was like, maybe I'll just like try, I had been writing for the Columbia newspaper about art. And so I was like, maybe I'll just try this I didn't really know that art journalism was a job.
Was a thing, yeah.
So I Googled best art blog and what came up, the two things that came up were Artnet.
Really? What year was this?
This was 2008, maybe 2009. And so I started reading Artnet and also this blog that is now defunct called Art F City. It's run by an art critic named Patty Johnson. And so I just emailed her. I cold emailed her and was like, do you need an intern? And she was like, I guess.
Good hustle.
And that was how, that's sort of like, that's the beginning of how it all started was I interned for her in the summer. And I was sort of like doing other like babysitting and odd jobs for money. I don't think she paid me anything. And
a foreshadowing of the art industry.
Yeah, exactly. A foreshadowing of the art industry, an indication of how important, like how, economically inaccessible it is. And how much privilege is required in order to break in. And that was really where it all began.
Wow, it's fascinating that you were also eyeing off Artnet from such an early
I know.
age.
I mean, I think it was
became the executive editor.
It is weird. I hadn't really thought about it, but it is. I mean, it was the only.
Talk about manifesting. Did you have it on a mood board or something?
It was just like an entry point. It was such a funnel. I think it was so early on. It was early in. There weren't that many art sites at that time, and so it was. I think the way a lot of people found this kind of media.
Yeah. And where did the love of writing and journalism come from?
I mean, I had just always loved storytelling and language and words, and that was always like the sort of, the mode of expression that was the most intuitive to me. And
did you train as a writer or just came naturally?
I mean, just like, in school, you're like, and I majored in English lit in college. But everything I learned about journalism, I learned on the job, like, and also, doing it in like a student capacity.
Is there someone who you feel like has had a big influence on your career? It sounds like maybe your mom.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely getting me into art was, she played a big role in that. And then I think, editors who like kind of saw me and encouraged me for sure. the editor-in-chief of the art newspaper when I started, and that was like my second kind of like journalism job, was really did like take a sort of interest in me. And I remember having conversations with her. She was based in London, but she would come to New York, and having like one-on-one conversations, which was the first time that I had that with any kind of boss figure, to be like, hey, I'm noticing this in your work, or like, if you think about it this way, you're going to have more success. And like not having it be in response to a particular task, but having it be kind of like more holistic, made me feel so valued and special. And I like I haven't forgotten the things that she's told me.
That's amazing. Who is this?
Her name's Jane Morris. She was there she worked at the art newspaper for a number of years, and now she's independent as well.
So was she your boss, or was she a mentor?
She was like my boss's boss. Basically.
Okay, so she was kind of a bit more of a mentor to you.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to hear that, because it sounds like she was also kind of helping you identify what your strengths were.
Yeah, and also just the idea that you know, these things could be refined. I think especially in media, there's this idea that you just sort of like, it's so frantic that like you either have it or you don't, or like you can make it or you can't. And there is so little time spent on the idea of training someone into something, because there's such a sort of atmosphere of whatever the opposite of abundance is.
Scarcity.
Yes.
Scarcity of time, resources.
Yeah. And so just like taking a minute and being like, oh, I believe it's worth investing like this like lunch with you to talk about, you know, how you can grow was invaluable.
Do you have a mentor now?
Not really.
Less so, yeah.
Less so. I mean, I have kind of like co-conspirators, I think.
Yeah,
and
me
that
too.
feels,
Yeah.
in some ways, or people who have different kinds of expertise than I do. I mean, I think we'll talk later about the Burns Halperin Report, but certainly my partner on that is like a kind of key figure, and we lean on each other a lot. And then we're also part of a sort of larger constellation of equity-focused data organizations that's like informal, but we, you know, meet monthly and kind of talk about what issues are coming up, and they have different areas of expertise, either it's like fundraising or like, you know, hardcore technical skills. And so being able to have that feels, it's like it's a nice shift in that it feels really horizontal, but the skill sets are so different.
It's very cool. I love that you call it the co-conspirators. Like, I feel like I have, some people call that personal board of advisors or kitchen cabinet. I definitely have those people in my life too. And it's a combination of friends, but some kind of former colleagues, some former bosses, some former direct reports, all this like kind of up, down, across. Yeah. It's so helpful, isn't it? Just to like bounce ideas off. Everyone needs those people. Yeah, and especially I think when you're working independently, and so you have no sense of like, is this going badly for you too? Yeah. Exactly. Okay, my next question is, you know, a lot of your work seems really driven by these really big questions, right, about power, representation, and institutional change. And I'm just curious, kind of, you know, is there some sort of big question that you're trying to answer or dig into with this work?
I love that that's what you took away from what I cover, because that feels really true to me. And I think the question I'm always trying to answer in one way or another is like, why do we value what we value? Yeah. And good. that can be, why is this object worth more than this other object? That can be, why is this cultural history considered more important than another? That could be, why is this role paid more than this other role? You know, value is so shaped by like cultural, political, social forces. Like it is made, not inherent, in so many ways. And so I think investigating that is like the thing that drives me. What are your observations so far around how people assign value to things? I mean, I think the thing that has been the most sort of consistent across the board is just this idea that we think the way that our value systems are means that they've always been that way. And it's just so, it's like we have this kind of like goldfish memory around value systems that always surprises me. My favorite example is the fact that diamond engagement rings, like, were not widely valued or used until World War II.
Really?
Yeah. And it was like De Beers, the diamond company, that just had an extremely successful advertising
Was it
campaign.
the ad campaign? Yeah, that's right.
And like now we just think that's always
what was the tagline? I can't remember. Yeah, I remember studying this in college around marketing and advertising too.
Yeah.
And then that whole idea around, which has obviously changed a lot now, but remember there was one point where it was like the man should be spending 3 months of his salary on the engagement.
Yes.
That was all made up by them.
It's crazy.
Yeah, which is wild. And then that really went into kind of folklore, right?
Yes.
Like when you're a young girl being like, well, I want my husband to be spending which is insane.
It's insane.
It's insane. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then so that to me is such a great example of like how the things that we take for granted as sort of like pillars of our lives have been manufactured, by people who have something to gain.
What does that say about us?
I mean, I think it takes a lot of effort to unlearn things that you sort of take as gospel when you hear it the first time. And I feel very lucky that part of my job is sort of like questioning and trying to figure out like, where did that come from? Where did we first learn that? And like, why?
I love this because it almost paints a visual of everyone else just kind of clocked in and almost Truman Show-like and like going about their day and not really kind of aware of the world around them. And then kind of little Julia in the middle being like, hey, like,
I mean,
questioning things, asking decisions, asking questions.
I'm also like constantly like I'm also being fed and absorbing all of this garbage too. I think I do in that way take a lot of inspiration from artists who I feel like do this fundamentally. And the artists that I'm most interested are the ones who do that. And that's where I feel like I learn from their sort of attitude and way of looking at the world.
Yeah, and how do you it's almost like you're helping us get to the core of who we really are. You're helping us reveal kind of human truths, I guess.
Yeah, and just how much like just get rid of all of the garbage. Like there's so much garbage on top.
So hard to get rid of that.
And then there are so many alternatives underneath. Like I don't think that one is necessarily more true than the other, but at least they're not manufactured.
I also have a question for you just around kind of state of the media industry right now. Like, I feel like you're in a really unique position where you work at both kind of legacy institutions like Financial Times, New York Times, but then you're also quite involved in kind of like the newer media side of things as well. How do you see this landscape kind of changing of arts journalism, and where do you think it's heading?
Okay, well, I have a joke that I sometimes say about this that's really it's just really dark and like kind of doesn't have a happy ending, which is like, do you know that scene in at the beginning of Pirates of the Caribbean, which I haven't even fully seen, but I have seen the beginning, where he's on like a sinking ship and he's basically on like the top of the mast, like it's so far down that it's just the top of the mast, and he gets to the top of the mast and then he just like finally gets to the dock. So it's like the ship is sinking and he's just stepping onto the dock. Like, and that's kind of how I feel about media. It's like I'm just riding it to the end and then maybe I'll step onto something else. I do feel like I'm sort of at the end of it. Like I'm enjoying the end of an empire that is falling and will need to reinvent itself in some way. Like I don't think that traditional media is gonna. I think that the big ones will survive, right? Like, I do think the New York Times will survive. I do think, like, there will be a winner-take-all mentality. But I do not think that we are going to be living in a world that is a sort of robust media environment as we know it. I think that, at Artnet, we used to talk about the idea of the audience being like a fried egg. I don't know if you remember this. There was the yolk is sort of the industry that sort of needs to read this stuff to do their jobs. And then the white are the kind of like hobbyists, people who are interested in visual culture, like the people who will read about like a child breaking a Yayoi Kusama pumpkin or a Rembrandt being discovered like under the sink. And I think the future I see is that those two things are going to kind of like get further and further apart. Like I think that there will be more kind of like premium professional media that is really targeted towards a, you know, an industry audience. And then there will be, you know, kind of broader media that will be sort of less attached to industry. And so I think, you know, individual voices will become more important, as they already have.
Yeah, that's already happening.
I don't think, yeah, I mean, that's sort of, that's kind of it.
Yeah, I feel like that's already happening, right? With people trusting kind of these bigger legacy institutions less and kind of finding the journalists that they want to follow and kind of looking at them for expert advice.
Yeah, which I think, I don't know. I don't feel great about it because I think there is something about a system that can address. I think it's good that we're becoming more open about the fact that everyone brings their own bias. Like there is no such thing as unbiased journalism.
I agree with that.
If you're a human being, you have biases that you bring to the work you do.
You know who we're agreeing with?
Who?
Megyn Kelly.
I know. I hate that.
Which is wild.
I know.
This was fast. Did you listen to that the Times interview?
I did.
What did you think of it?
I mean, it feels like it's operating in a completely different media world than the one I operate in. Like, it just sort of feels like I'm like reading about like, you know, Hollywood or sports or something. But I do think the idea that bias is, I think what I agree with her on is, yes, everyone brings their own bias.
1,000% agree.
Where I don't agree is the idea that like, I think good systems can help counteract for some of those blind spots or address those blind spots. Like that's what I think.
It's almost like we need both. But she also said that.
Yeah.
It was the first and maybe last time I might ever agree with her, but I found myself being like, oh my God, she's totally spot on. And in this moment, I think the Times almost seemed flat-footed with it, right? Because she was also saying like, we need both. We need the bigger media institutions because they do have the systems in place and they're going to make sure it's fact-checked and all the things. But that people are wanting to get the news from people they trust. I thought one thing was fascinating that she talked about, this idea of like the parasocial relationship.
I know.
That people form these parasocial relationships and they want to really get to know you on a personal level. And for them to do that, they need to know what your biases are. And so, yeah, she was like, I'm open about supporting Trump, but my audience knows that. They want to know that about me, and therefore I'm being open about my bias. So anything I do say is with a bias, and like they trust me more because I'm honest about my bias. Yeah. And it's funny, it's happening in Australia quite a lot, but the kind of Megyn Kellys of Australia are actually all on the left, which is interesting. Like a lot of the independent media are more liberal voices. And they're doing the same thing. They're like super, super biased in that direction. And they're getting a lot of flack for that. But it's like, you know, then they're not trying to cover up kind of who they are. As long as you have both, because otherwise where are all those people pulling the information from?
Right, exactly.
Like you need a base of facts to work from.
Yeah, and I think that the things that the system can do, yes, are like fact check and
investigate and report.
Yeah.
Because none of these kind of like talking heads on the internet are doing any reporting. I don't.
Yeah, put money and investment into like paying for you to buy a book so you can read about the thing that you're covering. Yeah. Like it's, you know.
Or going out and speaking to people.
Yeah.
You know, and not just kind of pulling it.
But but I think even that, it's like even if I'm doing a reported story, I'm still bringing the bias of my life experience to everything I do.
What do you think effective leadership looks like in this moment from all these different organizations?
I mean, I think it's probably the same things that effective leadership looks like in any organization, which is like transparency, accountability. I think the one thing that I think is maybe distinct for a news organization, but probably is true across the board. I was joking about this with a journalist that I work with often at the Times, Zachary Small, and we were talking about how we feel like editors should have to like go back in the field like once every 2 years to like report a story themselves so that they remember what that takes. Involves.
Yes. So when you don't cut it all out, you know how much work.
But even that, it's just sort of like I think you become really disconnected from not only the labor that it takes, but also the, like, they'll ask you to sort of go down a rabbit hole where you're just like, this does not make sense. Like, this is just you kind of.
Wait, the editors are asking them to go down?
Yes. Yeah. They'll be like, well, why don't you call this person to ask this thing? And you're like, that's not right. You're going to cut it. You and I both know you're going to cut it.
Don't waste my time.
Or like, why don't we go down to the Smithsonian and take photos of every wall label and then go back and see how it changes? And it's like, we could do that, but I'm a freelancer, so I'm not going to do that because the chance that you'll pay me for an article is pretty low. So I think, having some connection to like the sort of day-to-day work that you're overseeing is really important, because I also think that what that work involves changes. Like it's probably different from when they were doing it.
Can we talk a little bit about the Burns Halperin Report, and just maybe for people listening, give them a little snapshot of what that is and also just how it came about?
Yeah, so this is a report that I do with Charlotte Burns, who was a colleague of mine at the Art newspaper. And it came about after we had both left the Art newspaper and were working for other publications. She was working for In Other Words, which was a podcast under the umbrella of Sotheby's. And I was working for Artnet. And it was 2018. It was a moment when there were all of these articles that were coming out about how like great a time it was to be a Black American artist. Like there was a big Basquiat record at Sotheby's. There was a solo show of Kerry James Marshall at the Met Breuer. And that was just sort of like whipped up into this narrative that, you know, all of our, you know, like we elected Obama and therefore racism is over. And we were sort of just like, is that true? Like it's the middle of the Trump presidency. Like, do we have any indication that that's actually happening? And so we decided to like use data to try to figure that out. And I had actually, the mentor that I mentioned earlier, Jane, had paid for me to go to like a day-long course a few years earlier at Columbia Journalism School on data journalism. And that was sort of how I first started to think about things through that lens. And that led me to do some stories for the Art newspaper about this, including a piece on that looked at the proportion of solo shows in museums that were of artists represented by, you know, like just a few mega galleries. And then I ended up like just how these things came back. I did a similar story with Zach like a month ago for the Times. And so I was already thinking about things through a data lens, and Charlotte and I were like, okay, instead of like meeting for drinks, like why don't we just like meet and do data? It's really great.
We can drink while we're doing that.
Exactly. And we did. And so, we started collecting this information and tracking, in that case, acquisitions of work by Black American artists and exhibitions of work by Black American artists over the previous 10 years. And, you know, found that our perceptions of progress wildly outpaced the reality. And we've continued, the project has changed a lot. We've continued to look at different groups. We looked at women. We're right now working on Latinx artists. The way we approach it has totally changed. The way we tell the stories has changed, but the kind of like guiding questions have stayed the same.
What's the observation on female artists?
Not good. I mean, the story is generally not good. So we're also trying to figure out how we can like do this in a way that doesn't feel like we're just like telling the same story over and over. But yeah, I mean, acquisitions of work by women represent, you know, like 10% of museum collections over the last 10 years. Wow. And they peaked in 2009.
Oh, interesting.
So just the idea that we've sort of like
they peaked in 2009, which is interesting because that's the major recession. And so
that is so interesting.
Maybe they were cheaper.
Yeah.
Which is
they definitely are cheaper. I mean, that we know.
But like, they're not even the gender disparity, but then they were also cheaper because of the economy. That's depressing.
But also just that we like think that there's some kind of linear, like progress. We're building on this and it's not. like if you don't keep paying really specific attention to these things, you'll just slide back into the status quo.
Because the female artists generally become more valuable as they're older, right? Is that
Yes,
the
you have to
general
be
trend?
like very old or dead. Although now it also is good if you're young and hot. It's just the middle age that's
the
really
middle
not
age.
great.
Which is like, that's across every industry, right? Like, it's like that middle, it's like when women basically are past their reproductive years, it's like society doesn't see them as valuable, no matter the industry.
And of course, that's the time as an artist where you're doing often your best work.
Yeah, totally.
Like you have
because you're
developed,
over your angst and
yeah, you've developed this
totally.
mastery, and you're
Yeah.
able to really like let your skills loose.
Yeah.
And like those are now artists who are in that phase of life, and especially women are. That's now like my favorite time to profile people, because I feel like that's when all the good stuff happens.
That is so fascinating. I do think that there's a thread there across kind of many industries. What do we do about that
I think,
besides buying more
yeah,
female artists?
I mean, by more female artists, I think changing our understanding of what like mastery looks like too. I mean, I think about that a lot. I think about our sort of perception of what an artist at the height of their powers looks like or does or functions as, and
What does it look? What do you feel like society looks at now, and what do you think it should get to?
I mean, I think that there is still this idea of like the male genius, like that like still looms so large over us. And this kind of independent, like person in isolation developing some kind of like genius work.
It's like in the tech world, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like the young male tech CEO is seen as like this wild kind of genius that we all adore. But like if a woman was in the same situation, she's not viewed through the same light.
But I also think even beyond the same situation, it's also like artists who work in collectives, or like people who are you know, prioritizing collaboration and development in community. Like those things we do not see as genius. We see them as somehow like grassroots, or like you know, like good work in a really pejorative way. We don't see it as this sort of like
A great work of art.
yeah, like a peak of intellectual and creative achievement, which in so many cases it is.
Do you think women are judged more harshly,
I mean, sure, yeah.
their work?
I think it's dismissed more often. I think this is true for non-white artists as well. I mean, you know, you see this all the time in terms of, you know, in order to justify a solo exhibition at a museum, you might, you know, like Picasso. They'll do a Picasso solo show of like the work he made one summer when he was 44. Like, and in order to justify a solo show, if you're a mid-career female artist, or if you're a female artist in general, you have to have had an entire arc of a career. Like you have to have achieved so much and justify the, you know, square feet being given to you. I mean, I think this is shifting a little bit, but
The expectations are higher.
the expectations are higher. What you need to have achieved is greater. Yeah.
Okay. God, the parallels there to all the other conversations, because we've spoken to some people around this idea as well of the glass cliff with women. You know, it's almost like the expectations are higher, but they judge more harshly. They're also set up to fail more often, all the things, a lot of parallels. I want to jump into the conversation around failure a little bit now. Let's just start with kind of how you think about failure, how you define it. And I'm curious if that word, you know, your relationship with it has evolved over your career.
Yeah. I feel like I probably think about it differently than a lot of your entrepreneurial guests and friends. Also, I am a complete, like, I'd like to say recovering perfectionist, but kind of just perfectionist, and recovering / current people pleaser. And so
Plenty of those.
I have not, I have often, if I have gotten to a place, stepped up to the cliff where failure might happen, I've just like walked backward. Like I have not taken the risks that failure, that would invite failure. But I think in terms of reframing it, I have definitely like made plenty of mistakes and gotten in plenty of situations where I've had to think through it. And I think I have started to think of trying to reframe failure as friction. You know, when something, either I have to change course or I get down one path and it's not working, or it's stressing me out, or someone's threatening to sue me, or whatever, that is like almost a reframing it as something more neutral, which is just like, okay, we're in a moment of friction.
I love that. And it's like friction is, you know, you can navigate that.
Yeah.
You can work through it, and there will be another side. Can we talk about the perfectionism, people-pleasing side of it? Because I actually think that's super, super relatable to a lot of high-performing executives in the creative industry, because when you're at a certain level, you know, often these people do have a really, high expectations of themselves, and sometimes that can translate. I'm curious, when has this kind of people-pleasing or perfectionism worked in your favor? Like, when has it been a strength for you, and when has it been a drawback?
I mean, it's definitely worked, you know, in media, you are so much measured by your production. I mean, I'm sure this is true in other industries as well, but like, you know, if I'm working harder and producing more stories and interviewing more people and, you know, keeping everything I'm doing at a certain level, then I keep getting hired, or I'm able to move up the ranks. I mean, that's definitely happened. But yeah, no, it means I'm not modeling, like, for when I become a manager, I'm not modeling any kind of appropriate boundaries of how you should like not let your work consume you, and not over-identify with your work. And I think one of my like sort of arcs of learning over my career is figuring out who I'm willing to disappoint and trying to refocus that on like me and not someone else. I think so often decisions I've made have been like, you have even in a simple way of like, you have the subject of the story and you have your editor, and like who do you want to disappoint more or less? And that would be what would drive me. It would be completely it would be depersonalized and like totally just like, who do I want to please more?
Wow.
And that has definitely evolved in a way that I think has been critical.
How do you think about that now?
I mean, now it's like, who do I like? Am I going to which way is going to disappoint me more or less?
So you've made the shift into, so now it's more the failure is whether you are kind of happy with the work.
Yeah.
How did you make that jump?
I mean, it was incremental for sure. I mean, I think about when you asked about like failure to, I was sort of, I was thinking about one moment when I was working at the art newspaper. The art newspaper does daily newspapers at art fairs around the world.
Right.
And it's their big money maker of the year, like the, you know, advertising.
Yeah.
They make tons of money on it. It's really high profile because like everybody in the art world is there and they're picking up their copy, and it's it felt like a really big deal to be working on them. And it was my first year as the editor of one. So it was like I was the editor of the Art Basel dailies on these nights, and it was very like it's a daily newspaper. So like you're in the office like closing the paper late at night. It's like feels like you're in a movie. And this was, I can't remember if it was like 2014. I'll have to look up the year, but sometime in the 2010s. And there was a stabbing on the floor of Art Basel. I don't know if you remember reading about this or hearing about this at the time.
Whoa.
But a girl woman was following around some other woman and stabbed her with, I can't remember if it was a pen or an X-Acto knife, but it was like blood everywhere. People thought it was an art performance. It's like kind of gone down in art world lore as this like the Art Basel stabbing.
Did the person survive?
Yes, she was fine. I mean, I think she got some stitches.
Holy
but
shit.
yeah,
Because you would think, is this a performance?
no, plenty of people thought it was a performance.
Is Marina Abramovich going to pop out at any moment?
Right, and like even the medics came and people were like, oh, like it took a really long time for it to register.
So the girls would be like, help me, I'm dying.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And that was a big story.
Yeah.
And I was getting pressure to like, it was late in the day. We would have had to push back the production timeline to include it in like a big way. And I was like, do I put it on the front page or not? Mm-hmm. And the like head editor of the paper was sort of pressuring me not to, because the relationship with the fair is really important. And, you know, they have like, this is their big product of the year. And so I didn't do it. I didn't put it on the front page. I put it inside and small. And at the time, it didn't feel like a failure. At the time, it felt like I was like, phew, like I've avoided confrontation. And only in retrospect am I like, oh, I'm really embarrassed about that. Like, I don't want people to know that. And that's why I think about failure as friction, because that would have been friction.
So it's like you're kind of trying to avoid the conflict with the relationships too, it sounds like.
Oh, 100%. Like it's the whole that's like the same pleasing thing. Was like, okay, I can please everyone here except for me if I do it this way. And so
that is such a good story. I mean, it also, I imagine, like that's almost the genesis of the Burns Halperin Report too, because it's like, you know, holding these stakeholders to account, whether it's, you know, your boss or the fair in itself, and kind of people trying to protect those relationships. What's the learning for you? What did you take away from that situation?
I mean, I think the short-term avoidance is going to be more painful long-term. And I think also just the idea that actually following your own gut will not lead you astray. I mean, even if it is really difficult in the moment. You know, now when museums are annoyed about or angry or, you know, really take issue with the work that we do on the Burns Halperin Report or other things, I am able to take it a lot more in stride, because I'm like, well, I know why like we're doing it, and we've stayed pretty clear to the values. You know, it's harder when we get criticism that I think is valid especially from people who feel like, you know, we're not doing enough, or we aren't, or that there are elements of equity that we're sort of like eliding and reducing this into numbers, or, you know, or feel like it's in some way sort of like conservative to even value what conventional institutions are doing in the way that we're sort of putting that forth as the most important measure, which I don't think we are saying it's the most important. But so I think it has been like a process of my professional life to figure out how to invite criticism and be comfortable with it, and then figure out what I want to take from it.
Yeah, it sounds like over time you've developed more of your own kind of value set.
Yeah.
Right? And moral compass value set.
100%.
And that's come up a lot in these conversations, that the more senior people become, the more important their integrity becomes, the more important their values are, and you start to make those decisions by that. And then the failure often becomes a moral failing. You know, whether you put it on the front page or not, it's like you can live with that. But can you live with yourself and knowing that you kind of didn't do it at that time?
Yeah, and also why you didn't do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You didn't do it because,
I didn't want people to be mad at me.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what advice would you give to someone? Because what you are explaining, and thank you for being so vulnerable about it, I think is so relatable. There was another guest that came on who had a similar thing in terms of just like, I think my failure might be that I actually haven't failed enough because I've always just been kind of pleasing everyone and getting things exactly to where they need to be. Haven't really taken the risks. Would you have any advice for someone who's in that situation?
I think I mean, if I'm like, I think there is going to be a limit to how much you can achieve and push yourself if you're not willing to do the kind of uncomfortable, confrontational thing. Like, you will stay within this really narrow band.
Yeah.
And you won't surprise yourself. Like, you... like, it'll be boring.
Yeah. And I feel like that's almost the definition of leadership in a way, right? Like doing the right thing when it's really hard.
Yeah. And I think that the more you do it, like if you start small, the more you do it, the more you realize the world doesn't fall apart, you know?
Well, that's a good insight, right? Of like, just maybe it's the pushback needs to start small. So then you do it and you realize that actually the conflict is manageable. If I do hold my boundary, if I do push back, you know, I'm not going to get fired. The world's not going to fall apart, and I can keep just making kind of small.
And you can, I think it really can be incremental. Like, you can start by being like, actually, like, no, I don't think that we should do that, and here's why. Or like, no, I don't want to make that change, and let me try to articulate why. And then the more you do that, the more it becomes, I think, second nature to sort of locate where your own internal compass is pointing.
Mm-hmm. How does one kind of come up with this value set? It seems like, you know, that you are quite guided by that at this point. How does one come up with that? I'm
sure it's different for different people. I think I found that, you know, after I left Artnet, which was very counter to the kind of like person that we're talking about who put this thing on the inside, first page, second page. You know, I was disappointing people in leaving. I had no other job lined up, which is like unbelievably out of character for me. Like, it's the most out of character thing I've ever done. And it's made a kind of like guideline for myself that I called it my Rumspringa, that for like 2 to 3 months after leaving, I wasn't going to work. I traveled around, but also that like every morning I was going to write in a journal. I'm not a journaler really, like 3 pages every morning. And like through that process, I would try to figure out what was important to me, what I wanted out of my professional and personal life. And the like repetitive nature of doing that did bring up for me like the values that were most important and how I wanted to sort of spend my time. And that's, you know, like curiosity, compassion, integrity, and that helped me make decisions about what I wanted to say yes and no to from then.
I love that. So that was actually somewhat intentional of coming journaling to try and find what you really cared about.
Yeah. And like if you're sort of free associating journaling, like I was just, you know, and at a certain point you're like, I'm sick of myself. Like all of these problems are the same problems. Like, come on. It like allows to sort of float to the surface, I think, the things that are important to you. And it made making decisions so much easier.
Yeah, and it sounds like, you know, when you don't have that, you're kind of rudderless, and that's when the people pleasing can become
100%.
Really, it's easier to people please because you don't have a clear direction of where you're going. So it's really easy to just say yes to everything everyone else wants you to do.
Exactly, and just to be like, okay, I'm going to externalize the sort of like magnet and just like follow.
Mm-hmm. It's great advice. It's great advice for someone who is a people pleaser. To the way to kind of navigate that is to actually kind of center yourself and get really clear on who you are and where your boundaries are going to be.
And in a way, like for me, it was writing, but it could be something different for other people. But like I do think that process of externalizing my own stuff, my own narrative, my own value system, like then I have an external thing that I can follow instead of other people being the external thing.
Has this been tested yet, kind of post Artnet on your own now? You've got your value set. You're a little bit clearer on what you're saying yes or no to. Has it been tested?
Oh, sure. absolutely. Yeah, and sometimes I do a good job and sometimes I don't. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I went against this.
Yeah, but at least you're aware of it now.
I am.
The self-awareness is key, because that's the boundaries start to collapse when you have no self-awareness and you're just running around, and then you wake up years later completely burnt out and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah, 100%. I am aware in the moment when I'm like, someone's asking me to do, it'll be like, I mean, honestly, it's usually like the New York Times is asking me to do a story, and I know that it's like not something that's that important to me, but I'm like, well, they're asking me and I don't want to disappoint them. And like, I don't want to compromise this relationship. So like, I'm going to say yes. And it's like a pretty small sacrifice.
But there's also, I think there's something in terms of just like weighing up risks, right? And making decisions more strategically that might not necessarily be people pleasing if you have your boundaries in place, right? You're like, I'm doing this to...
Yeah.
There's a strategic reason I'm doing this story.
And even in sort of like navigating bigger projects and figuring out where, also as an independent person now, like the sort of scope creep thing is something I didn't deal with before, because I just like, it was all scope creep if you're working for one person. And so, navigating that and figuring out where to put boundaries down is like a new and very testing thing for me.
I must say, I even feel like at Artnet, there was growth. Like you went through a lot of personal growth during that time. Like I feel like from when I first met you to when you were like, I'm out of here, resigning.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, by the end, you were much more assertive on what you were looking for on your boundaries. God, we really tried to keep you.
I was really, really ready to go.
Oh my God, I remember having coffee with you. I mean, I was also so happy for you and supportive, but also we really tried.
You did. You
really tried. But it's interesting because that came before your journaling, right?
Yeah.
So that was almost maybe kind of like you were already starting to kind of test that without writing it down.
Yeah, it wasn't strategic at that point. I think it was just sort of intuitive.
You knew.
And I did know. But yeah, I'm really proud of the version of me that did that.
Yeah,
because it's
totally.
It is really counter to the less evolved version that I was for most of my life.
Yeah, and trusting yourself too. That's coming up a lot in the conversations of people just as you get older and more experienced, just knowing that to trust your instincts and trust your gut a little bit more, and trust your body when it's telling you it's time. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I decided to leave in December or November, something around there. And I remember it was previous February, I was on a weekend trip with friends, and I was like, should I leave Artnet? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And then I didn't do it for a really long time. So you also have to be, you have to allow yourself to marinate and cook a little bit too, I think.
But I wonder if now that you kind of have this model a little bit, would that time be shorter now?
I think it would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I'm stuck, I still do now go back and do the like morning writing.
You do?
Yeah. If I'm really stuck, I'm like really stressed about something, I will. And it really helps.
Have you done the Artist Way?
Well, that's where it comes from.
Yeah,
the morning pages.
But you've done the whole
I have not
thing.
done it.
Yeah, okay.
I just took the part that I felt like would be good for me, and then
I feel like everyone just takes the morning pages.
Yeah, and it works.
It works totally. Yeah, I feel like no one has finished that book.
I mean, I know artists who have, and I know other people who have, like the true heads, but. And then you become like a real proselytizer for it because you're like, I've been through it. I did the whole thing.
People are obsessed. I never finished. I thought it was really helpful at different points, but I could never finish it. And I secretly think no one has. I put this on my Instagram the other day. I was in McNally Jackson, and they had like the bestseller shelf, and the Artist Way was like back in the middle. And I just thought it was so funny because I'm like, what is this telling? Is this like a recession indicator? What is this telling? Is this that everyone's burnt out and wanting to like reconnect?
I think it's all those things.
Like what's happening? Because that book has been around. It's been around for like at least 30 years. At least. It's wild. You ready for quick fire?
Yeah.
10 questions. Okay, the first one is, what's the biggest risk you've taken in your career?
Definitely quitting Artnet.
Yeah,
work
that's
independently.
Actually an obvious one.
Yeah.
That was the biggest risk. Worth it?
Yes.
Yeah. Would you do it again?
Yes.
Would you do it earlier?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, maybe you needed to go through all of that to kind of get to the point of getting in alignment.
I think so. And I think then getting to the point where you feel like you only this is the only choice you can make.
Clarity
is really, I think, was necessary.
Most embarrassing professional moment.
Oh my God. Oh my God. There's so many. There are so many. Okay, one that's a quick fire answer is when I was my first time writing a lead story for the art newspaper Miami Fairs. This was a little earlier, but it was a huge deal. I had a headache and I took 2 Advil, and I didn't understand why I felt so sleepy, and then I realized that I had taken 2 Advil PM.
Oh my God.
On deadline for my like biggest professional moment in my life.
Oh my God. Did you pass out?
No, I like whispered to a colleague. I was like, I just took 2 Advil PM.
Oh, you were at work.
Oh, I was on deadline for I was writing
It was
the
like
lead.
at night for yourself.
No,
Oh,
no, no.
holy
It was
shit.
like 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah, oh no.
My deadline was 6 p.m. I was writing the lead story for the art newspaper's Fair Dailies that day. It was my first time writing a lead story. And yeah, I took two.
Holy shit. What did you do?
I just finished it and then I went and passed out. I don't know I don't remember what it was about.
Was the story good?
I don't know. I have no idea what it was. I mean, I think I was like on another planet.
That is hilarious. We got to find that story and just be like, what is this? Is there an article that you published that you wish you could rewrite?
Oh, sure. I think if you're not looking back at articles you wrote like 2 to 3 years ago and aren't embarrassed, like you're doing something wrong. Yeah. I would say all of them. Literally all of them.
I mean, I even find that on the smaller scale with my newsletter. I will look over it, and then as soon as it's published, like a few hours later, I'm like, I'm the best editor once it's in everyone's inbox.
Yeah, of course.
Then I'm suddenly like, oh, we didn't need any of that.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. It never comes to me until everyone's already reading it.
No, I feel like at one point a publication that I worked for, their entire website, it was called Art Info, went offline, like it just died, and I was so relieved. Like I was just like, this is fantastic because now all of my errors are gone.
Or if all your work is gone. It's so funny. What's the most overrated art world trend?
Art fairs.
Art fairs.
Yeah. They're a terrible way to see art.
Yeah. What's going on with them? They seem like they're in kind of trouble, no?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, yeah, they're in trouble. I mean, the market's not doing well in general. And so that trickles down. And also, yeah, events businesses are really hard.
Just so expensive, so inaccessible. Most underrated artist.
Oh, I mean, any day it will be a different person. But I have been for a really long time into fiber art.
Oh, okay.
So I would say like Sheila Hicks.
Okay. We'll have to find her, put her in the pod. If you weren't a journalist, what would you be doing?
I would be a death doula.
That's right. We talked about this. Yes. Okay. You have to tell everyone about this. This fascinated me because we talked about this, but we have a shared fascination with death.
Yes, exactly.
It is the Irish in me,
and it's the Jew in me.
Yeah. The Irish and the Jews coming together to fascinate with death.
Yeah. No, I mean, I still think that I might do this after as my next career chapter. But yeah, I think that it's a fascinating role to walk someone to the end of the road. My understanding of it is, which may be wrong, if like death doulas are listening to this, please forgive me. But yeah, it combines the sort of like navigating the medical system with having difficult conversations about what people's desires are. And so like navigating systems and having difficult conversations are things that are really meaningful to me.
And core to who you are. What's something you've rethought recently? Changed your mind on?
I do think I used to sort of, I mean, this is so backward, but I used to think that social media was not a core part of storytelling or journalism, that it was sort of like an appendage. And now I do see it as essential. Like, you have to think of those things. You have to think about the story you're telling and the way you might share on social media at the same time.
That's a great one. I'm not gonna. I don't know I will ask you that.
What?
If you were a work of art, what would you be?
Oh God. I would be. Okay, this is so cheesy, but it just came to me, and so I would be. I would be Yoko Ono's wish tree, where you write down your wishes and then you hang it on the tree. And I do feel like I'm kind of like trying to collect people's deepest desires.
Love that. That is the people pleaser.
Exactly. I know. As I started to say it, I was like, oh, fuck.
She's not as self-actualized as she thought.
Maybe next year I'll come in and do something more self-directed.
I'm the wish tree. It's so good.
It's so bad.
She's like...
I'm a repository for other people's desires.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm overheating.
I almost didn't ask you that because I was like, this is cheesy. And I was like, fuck it. Ask her. Oh my God, amazing. Pet peeve in the workplace.
Telling someone to do something but framing it as a do you want to? Like, do you want to print this thing? Or like, do you want to go have that conversation with someone? Or do you want to fill out this form? And it's like, no, you're asking me to fill out a form.
Like framing it like they have agency in the decision when they don't.
Yeah, like you're telling me to do something. You're not asking if I want to. I hate that.
That's such a good one. Oh my God, I'm going to be really careful about that now. Did I ever do that? Maybe.
No, I'm not thinking of you.
Okay, that's good. Okay. My last question for you is, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh God. I guess not be a Yoko Ono wish tree. I want it to be fostering meaningful conversations about the reality of what it is to be in the world. Not the kind of, making people question what we value or the stories that we've inherited. And, doing that through data, but also storytelling.
I feel like your work does that so well. So that's so nice.
Good.
Nice little bow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was so fun. Is there anything you feel like anything we didn't cover off that you wish we asked? That you wish I asked?
No, but I want to ask you what.
Oh God.
What you feel
She's
like.
not ready.
No, what do you feel like the most counterintuitive thing you've learned from having these conversations?
The most counterintuitive, like the most surprising thing that's
like
come
the thing
up?
that's sort of counter to what you may have originally thought or valued, where you're like, oh.
I think what's come up a lot is people are really focused on this idea of moral conflict with themselves and moral failings in a much bigger way than I ever anticipated. And I think that's a good thing because it's showing that people are it's like the convo we've just had, right? People are developing like really strong value sets. I think as you get more senior in your career, you realize kind of those moments of failure are kind of become quite insignificant, right? You can bounce back from them, you can navigate them. But what really starts to pile up is if you start making decisions that are not in line with your values, or not kind of, not acting with integrity. That is what people are that really kind of sits with them. And I think that's something that comes with time. So yeah, I think that's probably the most surprising thing, that the biggest failure is more of a moral failure, even in the workplace.
All right.
If you liked this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. While you're at it, please drop a comment and let me know what resonated with you. I'd love to hear your take. And as always, I'd be so unbelievably grateful if you could share your favorite episode with a friend.
It really is the only way an independent podcast like this can be discovered.